You have 30 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't have security drag you out of my wedding. Right now. The voice was pure ice, cutting through the warm air of the reception. It was my twin sister, Isla. Her face was a mask of perfect bridal beauty and absolute fury. This wasn't the first time she had threatened to throw me out of a party. But this time, standing on the edge of a sprawling lawn, with hundreds of guests watching, it felt different. It felt final. Hello, everyone. How are you all doing today? I hope you're comfortable, maybe with a cup of tea, and that the weather is kind to you wherever you're listening from. I really hope you're settled in, because I promise you what you're about to hear is a story you will not be able to turn off. It's a story that proves that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the only ones capable of true betrayal. My name is Alara. This is the story of how I went from being the forgotten twin, the family embarrassment, to the woman standing on that same lawn just 1 hour later, watching my sister's perfect wedding reception grind to a halt. This is the story of how my twin sister threw me out of her wedding, only to have my husband arrive in a private jet with the President of the United States. But before that moment, before the sound of helicopter blades drowned out the string quartet, I have to take you back. Back to the beginning. Growing up, there were two of us, Isla and Alara. But in our family's eyes, there was really only one. Isla was the star. She was the brilliant one, the beautiful one, the one who got the scholarships, the one who commanded every room she entered. And I was Alara, the quiet one, the shadow, the sister she introduced as my sweet, simple twin. I was the one who cleaned up her messes, who listened to her breakups, who loaned her money I didn't have. I was 26 years old, and my entire life had been defined by my relationship to her. My fatal flaw, the one that almost destroyed me, was that I believed I needed her approval to exist. I believed that deep down, under all the biting comments and casual cruelty, she loved me. I believed that family was unbreakable. This wedding was supposed to be her ultimate triumph. She was marrying Julian Croft, a man from a family so wealthy they practically owned the city. The wedding was an obscene display of power. It wasn't a celebration of love, it was a coronation. And I, as the maid of honor, was just another prop. I went into that day with so much hope. I believed this wedding would finally be the thing that made her happy. That once she had everything she ever wanted, the money, the status, the man, she would finally soften. That she might finally see me as her sister, not her competition. I was so naive. The first clue that something was wrong, something deeper than the usual wedding day stress, came an hour before the ceremony. I was in the bridal suite, helping her with the ridiculous train of her dress. "You're shaking, Alara," she said, not looking at me, just staring at her own reflection. "Don't you dare trip and rip this. I know you're clumsy." "I won't," I whispered. "You look beautiful, Isla." She turned, her eyes narrowing. "You know, I almost didn't invite you." My stomach dropped. "What? Why? Oh, please, don't play dumb." She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a hiss so the makeup artist couldn't hear. "I know you're seeing someone. Hiding him, like some dirty little secret." My blood ran cold. I was seeing someone. His name was Leo. We had only been dating for 3 months, but it was different. He was the first person who had ever looked at me like I was the only person in the world. He was kind, he was funny, and he traveled a lot for his job, some kind of logistics consulting, he said. It was so new, so fragile, that I hadn't told anyone, especially not Isla. I wanted one thing that was just mine. I don't know what you're talking about," I stammered. "Liar," she hissed. "You've been sneaking around, haven't you? You think I don't know? You think I can't tell when you're happy? You don't get to be happy, Alara. Not when I'm this stressed. Who is he? Is he that pathetic artist you were crying over last year? Or someone new? It doesn't matter. He's a nobody, just like you." The dramatic irony of that statement is almost suffocating now. She called him Mr. Nobody. The audience, you know from the title who he really is. But at that moment, I just felt shame. She had a way of making anything good in my life feel small and dirty. The ticking clock was the reception. I just had to get through it. I had to smile, give my speech, and not cry. The ceremony went perfectly. Isla was radiant. Julian looked, well, He looked like he had just closed a major deal. At the reception, I did my job. I smiled. I toasted the happy couple, my voice only shaking a little. I thought I was safe. Then the catastrophe. I was standing near the towering, 7-foot wedding cake, just trying to catch my breath, when Isla cornered me. Her new husband, Julian, was at her side, looking uncomfortable. "Ilara," Isla said, her voice dangerously sweet. "Julian and I were just talking. He was telling me how friendly you've been to him." I froze. "What? I've barely spoken to him, Isla." "Congratulations, Julian." Julian wouldn't meet my eyes. He just stared at a champagne flute. "Don't lie to me," Isla snapped, her smile vanishing. "He told me you've been sending him messages, that you tried to proposition him. Last night, at my rehearsal dinner, the air left my lungs. This was insane." "What?" "No. Julian, that is not true. I would never." "Stop it, Ilara," Julian mumbled, still not looking at me. "It's okay. I told Isla I wasn't interested. It's just embarrassing for her." I looked between them, my heart pounding. This was a setup, a cold, calculated lie. Julian, this powerful man, was so weak, so terrified of his new wife, that he would go along with this. "Isla, why are you doing this?" My voice was trembling. "Because you're pathetic," she said, her voice rising. The guests nearby started to turn. "You couldn't stand that I was getting this. That I was finally getting everything I deserved. You had to try and ruin it. You had to try and take him from me. That's not true. You know it's not. You've always been jealous of me," she shrieked. "You've always been a leech." And then she did it. She picked up a full glass of red wine from a passing waiter's tray. "You are a stain, Ilara. A pathetic, jealous stain." She threw the wine all over the front of my pale blue maid of honor dress. There was a collective gasp. The music stopped. Every eye in the place was on me, dripping, humiliated. "Now," Isla said, her voice dropping back to that icy calm. "You have 30 seconds to tell me why I shouldn't have security drag you out of my wedding. Right now." I just stood there, shaking, tears mixing with the wine. I looked at my mother, who was just watching, her face pale, not moving to defend me. I looked at Julian, who was already turning away. I had no one. "Get out," Isla whispered. "Get out of my life." 2 security guards began to walk toward me. I didn't wait. I turned and I ran. I ran past the shocked faces, past the whispering guests, out of the grand hall, and onto the gravel path, sobbing. As I stood there, shivering in the setting sun, my phone buzzed in my clutch. It was a text from Leo. I had texted him earlier, telling him how awful the day was. His message read, "Where are you?" I texted back. "Isla just threw me out. She lied. She told everyone I hit on her husband. She ruined my dress. I'm standing outside the reception like trash." A moment passed. Then a new text. "I'm on my way. Don't move." I almost laughed. On his way. He was supposed to be in another country for work. He didn't even know the venue. "Leo, you're sweet, but you're thousands of miles away," I typed. His reply came instantly. "I'm closer than you think. Look up." I didn't understand. I looked up at the sky. Nothing. And then I heard it. A faint, rhythmic thumping. It grew louder and louder. It wasn't a car. It was a helicopter. And as I stood there, soaked in wine and shame, I realized my sister hadn't just made a mistake. She had just started a war she had no idea how to win. She thought she knew who I was. She thought she knew who he was. She was wrong. I stood there, frozen, staring at the sky. That sound. The thwack, thwack, thwack of the blades. It was so out of place, so violent against the backdrop of the delicate string music that was just starting to swell again from the reception tent. Isla was probably already back inside, lapping up the sympathy, telling everyone how I had tried to ruin her perfect day. The sound of those blades, it dragged me back. Back to all the other times I had been the one left outside. My entire life, I was the support structure. I was the load-bearing wall, and Isla was the beautiful, ornate facade. Our parents encouraged it. "Isla is sensitive," my mother would say. "She feels things so deeply." What she meant was Isla was volatile, and it was my job to manage her. I remember when we were 20, Isla had decided she was going to be a lawyer, not because she cared about justice, but because Croft was the name of the biggest law firm in the state. She failed her entrance exams, failed them spectacularly. I found her in her room, not crying, but in a cold, silent rage, tearing up her textbooks. "This is your fault," she hissed at me. "You were distracting me. You were happy about that stupid art class you were taking." I hadn't even been happy. I had just been content. But her accusation was enough. I dropped the class. I spent the next 6 months living in the library, practically learning the material for her. I made her flashcards. I drilled her. I wrote her practice essays. When she passed with a top score, our father took her out for a celebratory dinner. "That's my brilliant girl," he'd said, raising a glass. "You just needed to focus. I'm so glad you got your silly sister's hobbies out of your system." Isla just smiled, soaking it in. "Thanks, Daddy." She glanced at me and winked, as if we were in on a joke. And the pathetic thing, I smiled back. I felt a surge of pride. We did it. That was my fatal flaw. I always thought her victory was our victory. I didn't realize I was just the first rung on the ladder she was climbing. I gave up so much. A small scholarship to study botany in Costa Rica. "You can't go," Isla had cried, actual tears this time. "Who will help me with my internship applications? I'll fail without you, Alara. Don't you love me?" So I stayed. I got a simple admin job at a local insurance office. It was quiet. It was gray. And it was invisible, which was perfect. It allowed me to dedicate all my spare energy to Isla's ascent. Then came Julian Croft, the heir to the law firm, the man Isla had been targeting since she was a teenager. The first time she saw him at a fundraiser, she came home in a panic. "He's perfect," she breathed, pacing her room. "But he's so smart, Alara. He's not like the others. He'll see right through me." "He won't," I said, like I always did. "He'll see you." I became her strategist. I helped her research his interests. I picked out her clothes. I even helped her draft the casual, witty text messages she sent him. I was the Cyrano de Bergerac for her entire relationship, hiding in the shadows, feeding her the lines that would make him fall in love. And he did. But there was a moment, early on, that should have been my final warning. We were at a fundraiser. Isla was across the room, charming Julian's father. I was standing by the bar, just trying to look inconspicuous. Julian walked up to me. "You're Alara, right?" he asked. His eyes were kind, observant. Isla's secret weapon. I blushed. I just help her pick out dresses. He smiled. A real smile, not the tight one he gave everyone else. "I doubt that." I read that op-ed in the local paper about the new zoning laws. The one credited to Isla. The legal arguments were brilliant. But the prose, the turn of phrase about cultivating community growth, that sounded a lot more like a botanist than a corporate lawyer. My blood went cold. He knew. That was my phrase. I had written that entire article for her. Before I could answer, Isla was there, her hand possessively on Julian's arm. Her smile was brittle. "Darling, don't bore yourself with Alara. She's just talking about her plants." She practically dragged him away. That night, she came to my room. "What were you doing?" she demanded. "What?" "I was just standing there, Isla. You were trying to look smart. You were trying to impress him. Don't you ever do that again." "I wasn't, I swear." "I know you," she said, her voice low and dangerous. "I know that little, quiet, oh, I'm so innocent act. You want what I have. You've always wanted it. But you'll never get it. You're the nonprofit sister. The charity case. Don't you ever forget it. The first true betrayal wasn't the wine. It was that. It was the realization that she didn't just see me as support. She saw me as a threat she had to neutralize. That's when I started to build a wall. A very small, very fragile wall, but it was mine. I stopped telling her about my life. I stopped sharing my small hopes. And then, 3 months ago, I met Leo. It was at a tiny coffee shop I went to on my lunch breaks. He was at the next table, reading a book on supply chain management. I was sketching a plan on my napkin. He just looked over and said, "That's a Monstera deliciosa, right? The fruit is supposed to taste like a combination of pineapple and banana." I was so shocked I just stared. No one, especially not a man who looked like him, sharp, intense, and clearly not from around here, had ever opened a conversation with me about plants. We talked for an hour. He didn't ask what my sister did. He didn't ask about my family's money. He asked what I thought. He listened. He told me he traveled a lot, boring logistics work, he called it. He was funny. He was brilliant. And when he smiled at me, I felt seen. For the first time in my life. I knew, instinctively, I had to hide him from Isla. He was the first thing that was truly mine, and I knew she would find a way to destroy it. I just didn't know she would choose to do it on her wedding day. Which brought me back to the gravel path. The sound was deafening now. The helicopter wasn't just passing by. It was landing. It was a sleek, black machine, the kind you see in movies, with no markings. The downdraft tore at the reception tent. I heard glasses shattering, screams. People were running out, pointing. The helicopter hovered just feet off the ground, a spotlight snapping on, pinning me against the wall. A side door slid open. I saw Isla and Julian run to the edge of the lawn, their faces a mixture of terror and rage. "What is this?" Isla shrieked. "Who is ruining my wedding?" A rope ladder dropped, and a man descended. He was wearing a perfectly tailored dark suit, an earpiece in his ear. He moved with a speed and grace that was terrifying. He hit the gravel, unclipped himself, and ran toward me. It was Leo. "Leo," I whispered, my brain unable to process it. "What? I thought you were in Dubai." "Plans changed," he said, his voice clipped in all business. He was scanning the area, his eyes sharp. He reached me, his hands gently gripping my arms. "Are you hurt? Did she touch you?" She threw wine on me," I stammered, pointing at the stain. His face hardened. "Okay, we're leaving. Leaving. Leo, what is going on?" That's a helicopter." "I told you," he said, pulling me toward the hovering machine. "I was on my way." "But who are you?" Before he could answer, a second helicopter appeared. This one was massive. It was green, with official seals on the side. It didn't hover. It landed. It landed right in the middle of the lawn, crushing a giant, ornate ice sculpture of a swan. The blades of a second helicopter wound down. The door slid open, and out stepped two men in dark suits, followed by a man that every single person on that lawn, every person in the country, recognized instantly. It was the President of the United States. Isla and Julian just stood there, frozen, their mouths open. My parents looked like they were going to faint. The President scanned the chaotic scene, the terrified guests, the ruined tables, the two helicopters, and then his eyes locked on Leo. He strode across the lawn, his security details swarming around him. He walked right past Isla. He didn't even look at her. He came right to us. "Leo," the President said, his voice unmistakable, cutting through the wind. "Is this her? Is this Alara?" Leo put a protective arm around my waist. "Yes, sir. This is Alara." The President looked at me, his gaze softening. He took in my wine-soaked dress, my tear-streaked face. "Good God, son," the President said, his voice booming with authority. "And was that anger? What happened to her dress? And more importantly, who in the hell made her cry?" All the air seemed to be sucked off the lawn. The only sounds were the whump-whump of the helicopter blades and the frantic clicking of cell phone cameras from the guests, who were now pressed against the glass walls of the reception hall. Leo's arm around my waist was like a steel bar. He didn't look at the President. He didn't look at the security. He kept his eyes locked on Isla, who was standing there, her face a grotesque mask of disbelief and fury. "Who in the hell made her cry?" the President repeated, his voice a low, dangerous rumble. Leo didn't hesitate. He didn't raise his voice. He just lifted his free hand and pointed, a single, damning finger aimed directly at my twin sister. "She did, sir," Leo said, his voice hard. "Her sister, Isla Croft." The President's gaze shifted. It was like the sun focusing through a magnifying glass. He looked at Isla, and for the first time in her life, I saw my sister physically recoil. She, who had bullied professors and charmed CEOs, visibly shrank. He didn't move. He just looked at her, then at her new husband, Julian, who looked like he was about to be sick, then at my parents, who were clutching each other by a half-eaten buffet table. Ma'am, the president said, addressing Isla directly. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried over the wind. I've been to a lot of weddings. I've never been to one where the host treats her own family like this. You must be very proud. It was the proud that did it. It was the calm, devastating disappointment from the most powerful man in the world. Isla's face went from white to a blotchy, furious red. The terror was gone, replaced by the narcissistic rage I knew so well. This wasn't going the way her coronation was planned. Who are you? She shrieked, not at the president, but at me. Who do you think you are? You bring these people to my wedding. You did this. You planned this to ruin my day. Isla, stop, my mother whispered, finally moving, but it was too late. You're a nobody, Isla screamed, taking a step forward. I don't care who you brought. You're just Alara. You're nothing. Two of the president's Secret Service detail moved fluidly and instantly, placing themselves between Isla and me. My sister, the new queen of the city, was now being physically blocked by federal agents. Julian finally found his voice, a high-pitched, panicky squeak. Mr. President, sir, this is a terrible misunderstanding. A family spat. Alara, she's just emotional. The president looked at Julian with utter contempt. A spat, Mr. Croft? Is that what you call this? He gestured to my dress, soaked in wine. It looks more like an assault to me. He turned back to Leo. Leo, I assume you're not staying for the cake. No, sir. We're leaving, Leo said. He started pulling me again, this time toward his black helicopter. Wait, I said, my head spinning. Leo, the president, what is going on? I'll explain everything, he said, his voice softening just for me, his eyes full of an apology I didn't understand yet. I promise, but not here. I have to get you out of here. This was it. This was the point of no return. I looked back. I saw my family, frozen in a tableau of their own making. My father, just staring, his face ashen. My mother, her hand over her mouth. And Isla, her beautiful, perfect face was twisted in a snarl of pure hatred. A hatred so profound it was almost animalistic. She had cast me out. She had lied about me. She had humiliated me. 4 years, she had taken pieces of me, and today she had tried to take the last shred of my dignity. And here was this man, this mystery, offering me an escape I never could have imagined. The choice was simple. Stay here and be consumed by her darkness, or step into an unknown light. Okay, I said, my voice suddenly firm. Let's go. The attraction I felt to him in that moment was overwhelming. It wasn't just physical. It was his competence, his power, the way he had moved heaven and earth, or at least landed 2 helicopters at a private wedding, just because I sent him a text message saying I was sad. He was my protector, and in that moment, I would have followed him anywhere. He lifted me into the helicopter as if I weighed nothing. He climbed in after me, strapped me into the seat, and put a heavy headset over my ears. The noise of the blades instantly faded, replaced by a low hum. Leo, the president called from the grass. Leo leaned out. Sir, my office will be in touch with the Croft family's counsel. This is a mess, son. A public one. I know, sir. Thank you for coming. Your family, Leo. Now get her somewhere safe. The president nodded once to me, a look of surprising warmth in his eyes. Then he turned and strode back to his own helicopter. As our helicopter began to lift, I looked down. The scene below was pure chaos. Guests were running. Waiters were dropping trays. And Isla was just standing there, motionless, watching us rise. She looked small. Then I saw it. Beyond the gates of the estate, the flashing blue and red lights. Not just 1 or 2. A dozen. The media, the local news, the national press. They had followed the president. Oh no, I whispered, my hand flying to my mouth. Leo heard me over the headset. He put his hand over mine. Don't look, he said. It's okay. But Leo, they'll see all this. I know, he said, his face grim. Isla wanted a wedding everyone would talk about. It looks like she's going to get it. The problem was compounding. This wasn't a private humiliation anymore. My sister, in her attempt to destroy me, had just publicly humiliated herself in front of the president, and now the entire world. As the helicopter banked and turned, flying away from the wreckage of my old life, I looked at the man beside me. The man I thought was in logistics. You're not in logistics, are you? I asked, my voice small. Leo finally let out a long breath. He looked at me, his eyes full of secrets. Ilara, he said. My full name is Leo. Leo Amato. My father is the president's chief of staff. And I work for the National Security Council. I just stared at him. The vague trips, the secure phone, the way he was always so calm under pressure. The evidence I should have seen but missed because I was too busy being Isla's shadow. I was going to tell you, he said, his voice pleading. This weekend, I was going to tell you everything. I never imagined she would do this to you. I am so sorry. The helicopter soared over the city, and I was caught between terror and a strange, dizzying relief. I had just lost my entire family. I had just become the center of a national news story. But as Leo's hand tightened on mine, I realized, for the first time in my 26 years, I wasn't alone, and I was finally, irrevocably free. We were in the air for less than 10 minutes. It was just enough time for my brain to catch up with my reality. I was in a helicopter, with a man I'd been dating for 3 months, a man who was an operative for the National Security Council and the son of the president's chief of staff. We landed on the tarmac of a small, private airfield. I had never seen so much quiet efficiency. The helicopter blades were still spinning down as the door slid open and a man in a black suit simply gestured toward a sleek, white private jet waiting about 100 yards away. This way, Leo said, his hand on my back guiding me. Leo, this is insane, I whispered, my voice sounding small against the noise. A jet. Where are we going? Washington, he said, his face grim. My apartment. It's the only place I know is secure. You can't go back to your apartment, Ilara. You can't go to a hotel. After what Isla just did, the press is going to be hunting you. They'll be at your apartment before we even land. He was right. This was a trap. Not a physical one, but an emotional and logistical one. My sister hadn't just thrown me out of her wedding. She had thrown me out of my entire life. I was, for all intents and purposes, homeless. And my only refuge was this man I was realizing I barely knew. You lied to me, I said, stopping at the stairs of the jet. The words came out heavier than I intended. He stopped, turning to face me. His eyes were pained. Yes, he said, no hesitation. I did. My job, Ilara, it's not normal. It's not something I can just talk about. And my family, the name Amato, it changes things. People see the connection, not the person. I wanted. What? I asked. What did you want? I wanted what we had, he said, his voice raw. I wanted to sit in a coffee shop with a woman who didn't know who I was and who didn't care. I wanted to talk about plants and books. You were the first real thing that's happened to me in a very long time. I was going to tell you. I swear I was. Just not like this. The vulnerability in his eyes, the sincerity, it broke through my shock. This was the Leo the first knew. The man who listened. Okay, I said, taking a breath. Okay, you can explain the rest on the plane. But Leo, you have to promise me. No more lies. This is too much. I promise, he said, and the relief that washed over his face was so profound it made my heart ache. Whatever you want to know. I'm an open book. But we have to go. Now. We boarded the jet. It was quiet. The interior was all cream leather and dark wood. It felt like a sterile bubble, completely removed from the gravel path and the red wine stain on my dress. I sat down, and the moment the adrenaline began to fade, the tears came back, hot and silent. Leo sat across from me. He didn't try to touch me. He just waited. He let me cry. He passed me a bottle of water. After a few minutes, I wiped my face. She told Julian I hit on him. She lied. She did it all on purpose. I know, Leo said, his voice dark. She was setting you up. She's my twin, I whispered, the word tasting like poison. How could she hate me that much? Because you're not her, Leo said, leaning forward. You're everything she isn't, Ilara. You're kind. You're brilliant. You're genuine. She's a shell. And she can't stand that you're real. She needs to dim your light so she can feel like she's shining. The jet engines began to roar. As we taxied to the runway, my phone, which I'd clutched in my hand the whole time, began to explode. It wasn't just buzzing. It was a constant, vibrating scream of notifications. News alerts, texts, missed calls. Don't look at it, Leo advised. I have to, I said. It might be my mom. She must be worried sick. Oh, the irony. I unlocked the phone. The first thing I saw was a news alert from a major network. The headline made me feel sick to my stomach. Presidential scare. Unstable sister crashes elite Croft wedding, forcibly removed by mystery man. Unstable. I read aloud. Forcibly removed? Leo, they're painting me as the villain. It's Isla, Leo said, his jaw tight. She's controlling the narrative. She's fast. He was right. I clicked the link. There was a photo. A blurry, long-lens shot of me, my face twisted in tears, wine all down my front, being pulled away by Leo. It looked incriminating. It looked exactly like they said. And then I saw the worst part. An official statement from the Croft family. My fingers trembled as I read it. We are deeply saddened by the events of this evening. Our celebration was interrupted by a private family matter involving the bride's sister, Ilara, who is unwell. We have been trying to get her help for some time. Unwell, I whispered, my blood running cold. She's telling the world I'm crazy. This is how she wins, I said, looking at Leo, a dawning horror on my face. This is how she's always won. She breaks me, and then when I react, she points and says, see? She's the crazy one. And everyone believes her. Not this time, Leo said. How? She has Julian. She has my parents. She has all that money. And now she has the press on her side. Who do I have? You have me, he said, his voice a vow. And you have something she doesn't. The truth. Just then my phone rang. The screen flashed. MOM. A wave of desperate relief hit me. Oh, thank God. Mom. I answered, putting it on speaker. Mom, are you okay? I'm with Leo, I'm safe. There was a pause. Then her voice came through, high-pitched and frantic. Ilara, where are you? What have you done? What? Mom, Isla lied. She threw wine all over me. She had security. Ilara, stop it. Just stop. Her voice was sharp, cutting. You have humiliated this family. Do you have any idea what you've done? Your father is. He's beside himself. The Crofts. The president. You brought this scandal. I couldn't breathe. Mom, I'm the victim. She is your sister. And she is devastated. This man, this Leo, he had no right. He landed helicopters. You need to come home, Ilara. Right now. You need to come home, and you need to apologize to your sister. The word hung in the silent cabin. Apologize? Yes, apologize. And you need to fix this. Your father and Julian, they're already drafting a statement. You will tell the press you had a breakdown. That you're getting help. It's the only way to save this family's reputation. I looked at the phone. I looked at the tears on my dress. I looked at Leo, who was watching me with a look of profound, shared pain. My mother. She hadn't called to see if I was safe. She had called to tell me to fall on my sword, to protect Isla, to protect the family name. No, I said. My voice was quiet, but it was hollow. All the hope, all the desperate need for my mother's love, it just evaporated. What did you say? She shrieked. No, Mom. I'm not doing that. I'm not apologizing. And I'm not coming home. Ilara, don't you dare. I ended the call. I set the phone down on the table. The jet was finally in the air, climbing above the clouds. The pressure was mounting. My own family was now actively painting me as a lunatic. They had chosen their side. I was completely and totally isolated. I looked at Leo. The dread was a physical weight in my chest. They're trying to destroy me. They're trying to have me declared mentally unstable. They're going to win. Leo unbuckled his seatbelt and came to sit next to me. He didn't say, "It's okay." He didn't offer empty platitudes. He just took my hand. "No, they're not," he said, his voice hard. They're liars, Alara. And liars, they always leave a trail. You said you helped Isla. You said you wrote things for her. That op-ed for Julian's father. My mind started to whir, cutting through the fog of pain. Yes, I wrote. I wrote so much. Her law school application essay. Her thesis. That op-ed, dozens of memos for her internship. Where are they? He asked, his eyes intense. The original files. The drafts. The emails. Do you have them? I thought back. My old laptop. My cloud storage. The backups I never deleted. I think so. Yes. I think I have everything. A slow, grim smile spread across Leo's face. It was not the smile of the man I met in the coffee shop. It was the smile of a man who worked for the National Security Council. Good, he said. Isla wants to control the narrative. She wants to paint you as unwell. She just went to war with the wrong people. She thinks she's fighting you, the simple sister. She has no idea. She's about to be fighting me. He pulled out a laptop and a satellite phone. We're not hiding, Alara. We're getting organized. It's time to show the world who built Isla Croft from the ground up. We landed at a secure military airfield outside Washington, D.C. There was no terminal, just a black sedan that pulled up to the jet before the engines had even fully spooled down. The world outside the car was dark and blurry. I felt like I was moving through water. Leo's apartment wasn't a home. It was a fortress. It was a sterile, high-floor unit in a featureless glass building. There was no art on the walls, no books on the shelves, no food in the fridge. There was just a high-end coffee machine and a staggering amount of technology. You're safe here, he said, locking the door behind us. The sound of the deadbolt sliding home felt less like security and more like a cage. No one can get in. Not the press. Not your family. I was still in Isla's pale blue maid of honor dress, now stiff and brown with dried wine. I felt disgusting. I need to shower, I mumbled. Of course, he said, all business. Bathrooms through there. There are spare clothes in the closet. They're just basics, but they're clean. While you do that, I'll set up a workstation for you. We need to get all that data you have. He was already moving, pulling laptops and encrypted hard drives from a hidden wall safe. The man I met in the coffee shop was completely gone, replaced by this operative. I was clinging to the hope that my Leo was still in there, that he was just in crisis mode. I showered. The hot water stung my skin. I scrubbed at the wine stain, but it was useless. I felt like I was trying to scrub the whole day off me. I found the clothes he mentioned. A plain gray sweatshirt and black sweatpants. An anonymous uniform. When I came out, he had a laptop set up for me at a large glass desk. Okay, he said, handing me a steaming mug of coffee. I need you to log into all your old accounts. Your cloud storage, your email, everything you used when you were helping Isla. We need to download every draft, every email, every file. We'll build a timeline, prove a pattern of intellectual theft. It's the only way to fight their unwell narrative. I nodded, my hand shaking. Okay. I sat down and started to work. It was a strange, painful archaeology, digging up the ghosts of my past. There it was, the law school application essay, the one about justice I'd poured my heart into for her. The op-ed for Julian's father. An entire folder of research for her internship, complete with memos I'd written that she'd submitted as her own. The sheer volume of it was sickening. I had been a ghostwriter for my sister's entire life. Leo worked beside me, on his own, silent, focused. He was coordinating, dispatching. I heard snippets of his conversation, low and clipped. Establish a perimeter. Asset is secure. Monitor their comms. After about an hour, his satellite phone buzzed. He looked at it, his face tightening. I have to take this, he said. It's my father. I'll be in the other room. He left, and for the first time in hours I was alone. I kept working, but my mind was spinning. Asset is secure. Is that what I was to him? An asset? I tried to shake it off. I was being paranoid. I was traumatized. He had saved me. He was the only one on my side. I was trying to find an old draft of a paper on my external hard drive when my fingers brushed against a small, sleek USB drive in my laptop bag. I didn't recognize it. I pulled it out. It was silver, heavy, and marked with a single, unfamiliar logo. No, wait. I did recognize it. Leo had given it to me about a week ago at the coffee shop. You should back up those plant sketches, he'd said, smiling. This one is encrypted. No one can steal your genius. I had completely forgotten. I just tossed it in my bag. He must have given it to me by mistake. Maybe it had his logistics files on it. I shouldn't. I knew I shouldn't. It was his. It was private. But he had lied to me. He'd lied about who he was, and I was sitting here, still stained by my sister's betrayal, being called unwell by my own mother. I was done with secrets. My heart pounding, I slid the drive into the USB port. A single folder popped up. It was labeled Operation Crown. I clicked it. The contents made my blood turn to ice. It wasn't logistics. It was an investigation. A massive, high-level federal investigation. The main file was a detailed breakdown of the Croft family law firm. Julian's firm. They were suspected of being the primary American money laundering hub for an Eastern European oligarch. There were charts, bank transfers, surveillance photos. I felt sick. This was huge. This was why the president was involved. And then I saw the subfolder. The name of the folder was one word: Shadow. I clicked it. The first document that opened was a psychological profile. My psychological profile. Subject: Ilara, last name. Codename: Shadow. Vulnerabilities. The file read: severe lack of self-worth. Dominated by twin sister ISLA. Desperate need for external validation and affection. Highly intelligent, but emotionally naive. Isolated from family. Potential use. The report continued. Subject is the perfect vector for inserting into the Croft-Isla inner circle. Her invisibility is her greatest asset. She has deep, unfiltered access to ISLA. Can be cultivated as an intelligence source. My vision blurred. I couldn't breathe. I clicked the next file. It was a folder of surveillance photos. Me walking to my car. Me at the coffee shop before I'd ever spoken to Leo. Me sitting on a park bench, sketching. He hadn't just met me. He had been watching me. The coffee shop. The book on supply chains. The shared interest in my Monstera Deliciosa. It was all a script. A calculated move to exploit my vulnerabilities. The helicopter wasn't a rescue. It was an extraction. He hadn't saved me from Isla. He had recruited me. I was shaking so hard I could barely control the mouse. I scrolled, and my heart just stopped. It was an audio file. A recording. The timestamp was from 5 minutes ago. It was the call he was on right now. His voice was coming from the other room, and also from my speakers. He must have had some program running that was recording all his calls. I clicked play. Yes, sir, Leo's voice said, crisp and cold. The asset is secure. She's in the apartment. No, she has no idea. She's completely cooperative. Thinks I'm saving her. It's better this way. She's fragile. I heard a muffled voice on the other end, his father's. Yes, sir. She's uploading all her files right now, Leo continued. She's providing all the leverage on Isla we'll need. We can use it to pressure Julian. The intel on the money laundering is good, but this personal leverage is better. It'll break him. Yes, her intel will be invaluable. She'll do whatever I ask. He called me fragile. He said I'd do whatever I ask. I was a pawn. I was a tool. My entire relationship, the one pure, good thing I thought I had, the thing that gave me the strength to stand up to my sister, it was an operation. I looked at the wine stain on the dress I'd thrown on the floor. Isla had used me for her ambition. My parents had used me for their reputation. And Leo had used me for his country. I had no one. I had never had anyone. I was completely, utterly, and terrifyingly alone. The door to the study opened. Leo walked in, a small, tight smile on his face. Okay, my father is. Ilara, what's wrong? You're as white as a ghost. He looked at me. Then he looked at the screen. He saw the Operation Crown folder. He saw the shadow file. His eyes, the mask didn't just slip. It shattered. I saw for the first time, pure panic. Ilara, he said, taking a step toward me. Listen to me. You don't understand. I just looked up at him. the tears streaming down my face, my voice a dead, hollow whisper. Who? I asked. Is Asset Shadow? Leo's face was a ruin. The panic, the mask of the professional operative, it was all gone, replaced by the desperate, cornered look of a man who had just been found out in the worst way possible. Ilara, he said, his voice low, taking a step toward me. Ilara, listen to me. Put that down. You don't understand. I don't understand, I repeated. My voice was eerily calm. The shock was so profound it had frozen me. I think I'm the only one who does understand. Asset, shadow, vulnerabilities, desperate need for external validation. Potential use can be cultivated as an intelligent source. Which part am I misunderstanding, Leo? It started like that, he stammered, holding his hands up as if I were a wild animal. Yes, it was an assignment. Operation Crown is real. Julian Croft is a criminal. He's dangerous, Ilara. We had to get someone close to his new family. And you found me, I whispered, the pieces clicking together with sickening precision. The sweet, simple sister. The nonprofit case. The shadow. I was the perfect idiot, wasn't I? No, he said, his voice rising. It changed. The moment I met you, in that coffee shop, it all changed. Everything I felt, Ilara, that was real. I swear to you, I fell in love with you. Did you? I asked. I reached over, my hand steady, and clicked the mouse. His voice, the one from 5 minutes ago, filled the silent, sterile room. She has no idea. She's completely cooperative. Thinks I'm saving her. It's better this way. She's fragile. Her intel will be invaluable. She'll do whatever I ask. I clicked it off. The silence was deafening. Which part was real, Leo? I asked again, my voice dead. The part where you fell in love? Or the part where you called me a fragile asset who would do whatever you ask? His face hardened. The panic was gone. The operative was back. You don't know the stakes, Ilara. You think this is about your sister's wedding? You think this is about a wine stain? Julian Croft is laundering money for people who execute journalists, who fund civil wars. This is national security. This is bigger than your feelings. It's bigger than my feelings. So you used mine, I said. It wasn't a question. It was a statement. My grief, my humiliation, my love. It wasn't a relationship to him. It was leverage. I suddenly felt filthy. I couldn't be in this room. I couldn't be in this building. I turned and ran for the door, fumbling with the deadbolt. It wouldn't turn. Leo, open this door, I said, my voice shaking with a new kind of terror. Ilara, stop. You can't leave, he said, his voice flat. Open the door. No. He wasn't moving toward me. He was just standing by the desk, watching. You're a security risk now, Ilara. You know about Crown. You know about everything. I can't let you walk out of here. I backed away from the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. A security risk? I'm your prisoner. You're my guest, he said, but the word was hollow. I'm protecting you. The press is downstairs. I've had the building on lockdown. Your family. Ilara, your family is already moving. They're trying to have you declared incompetent. If you walk out that door, you'll be picked up, either by the press or by men hired by your father, and you'll be in a private hospital before morning. You are only safe. I laughed, a raw, terrible sound that tore out of my throat. Safe with my handler? Safe in my cage. I scrambled for my phone, the one I'd set on the desk. He thought I was calling for help. I wasn't. I was buying a ticket. To Costa Rica. To the place I should have gone all those years ago. I would use my savings and I would disappear. I opened my banking app. Account balance, $0. My breath hitched. No, that wasn't possible. I had at least $10,000. My emergency fund. The money I'd saved, bit by bit, from my simple admin job. I pulled up my transaction history. A single line item, dated 1 hour ago. Account hold, family court order pending. They did it, I whispered, sliding down the wall. They already did it. My parents. They hadn't just disowned me. They hadn't just chosen Isla. They had actively, legally, and financially destroyed me. They had cut me off. They were validating Isla's unwell story in a court of law. I was trapped. I had no money. I had no home. My family was hunting me. The press was hunting me. And the only man I'd ever loved, he was my jailer. This was rock bottom. Isla hadn't just thrown me out of her wedding. She had thrown me out of the world. And Leo had been standing right there, waiting to catch me in his net. He knelt, keeping his distance. His face was all business now. The pretense of the lover was gone. This was the man who ran operations. "Ilara," he said, his voice even. "Your sister is married to a criminal. Your parents are enabling him. They are all complicit. They've proven who they are. Now you have to decide who you are." What does that mean?" I whispered, my eyes fixed on the floor. "The case against Croft was stalling," he admitted, his voice clipped. "We had the financial data, but no insider. No way to get personal leverage on Julian. His weakness is Isla. And your weakness was Isla too. But it's also your strength. You have what we need." He gestured to the laptop, to the files I'd spent the last hour downloading. "Those files, your work, they're not just proof that she's a fraud. They're the key. We use them to break Isla. We use her to break Julian. You. Ilara, you are the only one who can do this." He was offering me a new identity. Not sister. Not shadow. Not asset. Hero. It was the same manipulation, just in a different dress. He'd profiled me perfectly. He knew I was desperate for validation. Desperate to be seen as good. I looked up. The tears had dried. There was just a cold, aching void. I looked at this man, this stranger, who knew every single one of my secrets. I thought about Isla's smug face as she threw that wine. I thought about my mother's voice on the phone, demanding I apologize. I thought about my father, stealing my money to protect his reputation. They had all made a terrible mistake. They all thought I was the simple one, the fragile one. I was silent for a long, long time. Leo waited. He thought I was breaking. He thought I was weighing the moral options. I wasn't. I was calculating. I finally let out a long, shuddering breath, a perfect imitation of a broken woman. "Okay," I whispered. "You're right. They took everything. I have nothing left. I'll help you." I looked up at him, my eyes wide and pleading. What do you want me to do?" The relief that washed over his face was so profound it was almost comical. He had won. His asset was back online. He had me, right where he wanted me. "Good," he said, standing up, the professional mask back in place. "That's good, Ilara. We'll start tomorrow. We'll get them all." He turned his back to me, walking over to his comm station, probably to tell his father the good news. That the asset was secure and cooperative. He didn't see the look in my eyes. He didn't see the shift. He was right. I was broken. But he had no idea what that meant. He thought my vulnerability was a weakness. He didn't realize it was a weapon. They had all used me. My family. My sister. And now him. They all thought I was the pawn. They were about to find out I was the only one who understood the whole board. The next morning, the sun streamed into the sterile apartment, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air. I hadn't slept. I was still wearing his gray sweatshirt. I had washed my face, pulled my hair back. I looked like a refugee, which I supposed I was. When Leo emerged from his room, he was back in his logistics uniform, a crisp shirt, dark trousers. He looked like he had slept. He stopped when he saw me, already at the glass desk, staring at the laptop. "Good morning," he said, his voice cautious, testing the waters. I turned. I let my face be exactly what he expected to see. Exhausted, puffy-eyed and broken. "Morning," I whispered. He visibly relaxed. His fragile asset was still in the box. "I made coffee," he said, holding out a mug. I took it, my hand trembling just slightly. It wasn't hard to fake. The trembling was real. It just wasn't from fear. It was from a cold, subterranean rage. "Thank you," I said. "So what happens now?" He sat across from me, all business. "Now we build a case. My team is monitoring all of them. Your family, Julian. The press is camped outside the Croft estate and your parents' house. The unwell sister narrative is the only one out there. So Isla wins," I said, my voice flat. "Not for long," he said. He slid a new, encrypted laptop toward me. This one is secure. I want you to start drafting a statement. But more than that, I want you to organize all those files, your essays for submissions, into a perfect timeline. We'll give it to a journalist. A specific one I trust. We're going to dismantle Isla's reputation, piece by piece. We'll show the world who the real genius in the family is. We'll show them who built her. I looked at the screen. He was offering me exactly what my vulnerability profile said I wanted. Validation. Recognition. He was offering to change my narrative from crazy sister to wronged victim. And that's when I knew he didn't understand me at all. Being the victim was just another cage. It was Isla's narrative, just inverted. I wasn't going to be poor Alara any more than I was going to be crazy Alara. Okay, I said, my voice small. I can do that. It's a lot. All those files. It'll take time. Take all the time you need, he said, his voice softening, that fake handler care coming back. You're safe here. I'm going to be on calls for most of the day. My father is managing the fallout from the president's appearance. It's complicated, but this will help. What you're doing, it's important, Alara. It's righteous. Righteous. He was good. He knew all the right words. He went into his bedroom, the door closing, his voice already a low murmur of official business. I was alone. I stared at the laptop. He thought I was just sorting files. He thought he was in complete control. He'd given me a secure laptop, which I knew meant he was monitoring every keystroke, every network connection. He was watching me, waiting for me to build the weapon he would fire. But he had made a mistake. He had given me a computer. I had been an admin for 8 years. I wasn't just good with computers. I was the person the IT department called when they couldn't figure something out. I was the shadow who understood the architecture of the entire system. And I had a memory that I had buried, because like everything else, it had been in service of Isla. It was about 6 months ago, right after the engagement. Isla, Julian, and I were at their new, half-empty penthouse. Julian was drunk. Not happily drunk, but dark and boastful. Isla was fawning over him, and he was lapping it up. They think they own me, Julian had slurred, swirling a glass of scotch. Her father. My father. They think I'm just part of the firm. The Croft brand. You are the Croft brand, darling, Isla had purred. I'm my brand, he'd snapped. They don't know about the escape hatch. They think all the money flows through them. But I've got my own. My real retirement. Just in case. Isla had laughed, not understanding. But later that night, she called me. Her voice was sharp, worried. What did he mean? Escape hatch. Is he hiding money from me? She'd asked me to look into it. And I, her faithful shadow, had done just that. I didn't have access to his bank records, of course. But I had something better. I had his laptop. He'd left it at Isla's, and she'd given it to me to set up her preferences. While I was setting up her bookmarks, I'd seen his. A single, encrypted financial portal. It took me less than 10 minutes to get past his password. It was Isla's birthday. The irony. I had found it. A bank I'd never heard of. An account number that looked more like a line of code. And a balance that, at the time, had stolen my breath. It was his personal, offshore, completely illegal fuck you fund. I had written it down, the bank, the account, the login, on a piece of paper, put it in an envelope, and given it to Isla. Here, I'd said. This is what you wanted. She'd looked at it, confused. This is just numbers. This is boring. Never mind. And she tossed the envelope, unopened, into a desk drawer. I knew exactly which drawer. But that was in her house. I was here. I didn't need the paper. I was a botanist. I was an admin. I had a mind for details. I remembered the sequence. I looked at the secure laptop. Leo was watching for network traffic. For emails. For file transfers. He wasn't watching for a simple, plain text file saved to the desktop. I opened a text editor, and I typed, Bank, Valerian Global Trust, Cayman. Account, 7701, X, 888B. Login, redacted. Pass, redacted. This was it. This was the key. Leo and his operation, Crown, were looking at the firm. They were looking at the money Julian laundered for the oligarchs. They had no idea about the money Julian was skimming from the oligarchs. This account, this wasn't just leverage. This was a bomb. If I gave this to Leo, he would win. The case would be closed. He'd be a hero. And I'd be his valuable asset, forever in his debt, forever under his control. If I did nothing, my family would win. I'd be declared incompetent, erased, and forgotten. The impossible choice. I had to find a third way. I had to light a fire that would burn all of their houses down, leaving me the only one standing in the ashes. But how? I was locked in. I couldn't email. I couldn't call. I stared at the screen. Leo wasn't just monitoring my traffic. He was running an operation. His comms were open. He was communicating with his team, with the journalist, with his father. He was using secure, encrypted cloud platforms. I went back to sorting my files, just as he'd asked. I opened the cloud drive he had given me access to, the one for the righteous journalist. I saw the folders he'd created. ISLA_academic_fraud. ISLA_personal_correspondence. I created a new folder. I named it _misc_botany_notes. Inside, I created a single text document. I named it Monstera_deliciosa_feed_schedule. And inside that document, I pasted the account information. It was hidden in plain sight, just like I had been my whole life. Now who to send it to? Not the press, not Leo's father, not the FBI. They were all players in Leo's game. I needed a new player, someone who had more at stake than any of them, someone who would be displeased to learn that Julian Croft was stealing from him. I went back to the Operation Crown files I'd copied from Leo's drive. I'd read them all night. I knew the name of the oligarch, the primary target, the man at the top of the food chain. I couldn't email him, but I knew who his lawyer was, a high-powered, ruthless woman in Zurich. Her contact info was right there in Leo's own files. I opened a new, anonymous, web-based email client, a disposable one. Leo's systems would flag it, but he'd think it was me, the fragile girl, trying to email a friend. By the time he shut it down, it would be too late. I typed her email address. Subject, an interested party. Body, Mr. Croft has a lovely escape hatch. He calls it his real retirement. I think your client might be interested to know where his investments are really going. Find the attached document in the public cloud directory listed below. Look for the botany notes. I pasted the public-facing, read-only link to the cloud folder. My finger hovered over the send button. This was the real choice. This wasn't just fighting back. This was escalation. This was setting a shark on my enemies. I had no idea what would happen. This man, the oligarch, could have me killed. He could have everyone killed. I thought of Isla's face. I thought of my mother's voice. I thought of Leo in the next room, so sure that I was his puppet. They all thought I was a fragile plant. They had no idea I was the kind that was poisonous. I hit send, and then I went back to sorting my files, my face a perfect mask of heartbroken victimhood, and I waited. It didn't take long. 24 hours. For a full day, I was the perfect asset. I sat at the desk. I meticulously sorted files. I cried at appropriate intervals. I let Leo bring me coffee and food, let him pat my shoulder with that awful, paternalistic care. He thought I was healing. He thought I was his. The first crack in his perfect fortress was his father. I heard his voice, a furious bark, from the closed bedroom. What do you mean compromised? How did they get ahead of us? Our entire case against Croft just evaporated, Leo. Evaporated. I kept my eyes on the screen, my heart a cold, heavy stone in my chest. They, the oligarch's lawyers. They were fast. Leo burst out of the room, his face pale, his phone clutched in his hand. He wasn't looking at me, but through me. Something's wrong, he muttered, pacing the length of the living room. Someone else is moving on Croft. All his offshore accounts, they're not just frozen. They're being seized. Seized, Alara. By a private trust. Not by us. Someone tipped them off. I looked up, my face a mask of fragile confusion. Tipped who off? I don't understand. Is that bad? Is it bad? He laughed, a sharp, hysterical sound. It's a catastrophe. We've been building this case for 18 months. We were going to use your evidence, the personal leverage, to make Julian flip on the oligarch. Now the oligarch is moving on him. He's cleaning house. Julian is a dead man, and our entire investigation just went up in smoke. He was breathing hard, running his hands through his hair. The man in control was gone. Who could have known? I whispered, my voice trembling perfectly. His eyes snapped to me, a new, dawning horror on his face. He hadn't suspected me. Not for a second. Until now. The Cloud Drive, he said, his voice a low growl. The one I gave you. For the journalist. He lunged for his own laptop, his fingers flying. He pulled up the drive. He saw the folders. He saw ISLA_academic_fraud. And then he saw it. _misc_botany_notes. His blood ran cold. I could see it. He clicked the folder. He opened Monstera_delicioso_feed_schedule. He read the account numbers. He slowly, so slowly looked up at me. The look in his eyes was something I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger. It wasn't betrayal. It was awe. And it was pure, unadulterated terror. You, he whispered. It was you. You didn't just find this. You used it. You sent it to them. I didn't answer. I just watched him. How? He demanded. How did you, the disposable email? The network monitoring? I thought you were just fragile. I supplied, my voice no longer whispering. It was clear. It was cold. An asset. A shadow. You sabotaged a federal investigation, Alara, he roared, slamming his fist on the desk. Do you know what you've done? You could go to prison for the rest of your life. So could you, I said, standing up. For lying to me. For holding me here against my wall. I gestured to his screen. For Operation Crown. For using a civilian as an unregistered, unwilling intelligence asset. I wonder what your father's political rivals would do with that story. Chief of Staff's son runs rogue op, kidnaps emotionally distressed woman to frame her criminal brother-in-law. It's a great headline. He just stared. Checkmate. He'd spent his life playing chess. He never realized I was playing, too. What do you want? He finally asked, his voice defeated. I want to watch it burn, I said. Just then, the large television in the living room, which had been on a news channel with the sound off, flashed a breaking news banner. Press conference. Croft family to address wedding scandal. I looked at the screen. There they were. My parents, looking drawn and mournful. Julian, looking terrified, but trying to project calm. And Isla. Perfect, beautiful Isla, in a tasteful, dove-gray suit, her face a mask of concerned sorrow. She was about to play the final card. She was about to put crazy Alara in the ground for good. They're going to destroy me, I said, playing the victim one last time. They're going to tell the world I'm insane. Leo looked at the screen, then at me. He was trapped. His operation was in flames. I was his only way out. He had to pivot. He had to find a new win. No, they're not, he said, his mind already working, the operative taking over. They're handing us the platform. You're a brilliant monster, Alara. But you're my monster. We're going to burn them together. No, I said. You're going to sit here. You're going to secure this building, and you're going to make sure no one stops what I'm about to do. I'm going to burn them. He stared at me, then nodded. What are you going to do? I'm going to give the press exactly what they want, I said. Just not the story Isla is selling. The press conference was chaos. It was in the grand ballroom of a hotel. Hundreds of cameras. Isla stepped up to the podium, her hand on her new husband's arm. My mother was dabbing at her eyes. Thank you. Thank you all for coming, Isla began, her voice thick with fake emotion. This was supposed to be the happiest time of our lives. But it has been overshadowed by a deeply painful family matter. She paused, taking a shaky breath. She was a good actress. I'd give her that. My sister, Alara, whom I love her so much. A single, perfect tear rolled down her cheek. She has not been well for a very long time. Her actions at my wedding were the culmination of a long and tragic mental health struggle. My father stepped up. We have been trying to get her help. We've had to make some difficult legal decisions to protect Alara from herself. The stories, the terrible things she has said, they are delusions. She needs compassion. She needs treatment. Julian put his arm around Isla. We ask for privacy. And we ask that you pray for Alara. We are committed to her recovery. They were brilliant. It was a masterpiece. They had just, in front of the entire world, declared me legally insane. They had preemptively nullified any truth I could ever tell. Isla leaned into the microphone one last time. I just want my sister back. I just want her to be BZZZT. Every phone in the room buzzed at the exact same time. A mass notification. The journalists looked down, confused. On the screen in Leo's apartment, I watched them. Their eyes went wide, then wider. They started murmuring, looking up from their phones to the stage, their expressions no longer sympathetic, but hungry. The first reporter stood up. Isla Croft, is it true you didn't write your own law school thesis? Is it true your sister, Alara, wrote it for you? Isla's smile froze. I don't know what that's an absurd. BZZZT. A second email. Another reporter. Mrs. Croft, we've just received a file. A full portfolio. The op-ed for Julian's father. Your bar exam essays. Dozens of memos, all in your sister's name. All with timestamps. Can you comment on this? Isla's face went white. She looked at Julian, panic in her eyes. This is slander. This is more of her delusions. Are they? A third reporter shouted, holding up her phone. Because the university has just been forwarded this file and they've confirmed your thesis is under immediate review for academic fraud. That's not a delusion, Mrs. Croft. That's a fact. Isla's mouth opened and closed. No sound came out. She was, for the first time in her life, speechless. And then, the real catastrophe hit. The doors at the back of the ballroom burst open. It wasn't more reporters. It was men in dark suits. But they weren't Secret Service. They were Treasury agents. Julian Croft, one of them shouted, his voice cutting through the stunned silence. Julian let go of Isla. He looked like he'd been shot. Julian Croft, the agent said, walking straight to the stage. You are being detained by the U.S. Department of Treasury on behalf of international authorities for suspicion of wire fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. What? No. This is... Julian stammered, backing away. It's over, Mr. Croft, the agent said. We know about Valerian Global Trust. We know about the escape hatch. Your associates have been very cooperative. They're quite unhappy with you. The room exploded. Cameras flashed. Reporters were screaming. My mother fainted. My father just stood there, his face gray. Isla just watched as they put her new husband, the man she built her entire life to get, in handcuffs. She watched as they read him his rights and dragged him off the stage. She was left alone at the podium. Her lies about me, her unwell sister, were still echoing in the room. The proof of her fraud was sitting in every reporter's inbox. And her husband, her prize, was gone. She had been crowned queen, and in a single, devastating 5-minute span, her entire kingdom had been reduced to rubble. On the television, the camera zoomed in on her face. It was no longer beautiful. It was a twisted, broken mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. And she was staring right into the camera, as if she knew. Somehow I was watching. In the apartment, Leo slowly sat down on the sofa. He looked at the screen, at the chaos I had unleashed, then he looked at me. You didn't just expose her, he whispered. You didn't just tip off the oligarch. You timed it. You waited for her to be at that podium. You let her build her own funeral pyre before you lit the match. I turned off the television. The sudden silence in the apartment was absolute. I told you, I said, walking to the window, looking down at the city lights. I was a good student. You all taught me so well. Isla taught me how to lie. My parents taught me how to sacrifice. And you, Leo, you taught me how to win. The silence in Leo's apartment was absolute, heavier than any of the shouting that had come before. My final words hung in the air between us. You taught me how to win. Leo just stared at me. The operative, the handler, the man who had profiled me so perfectly, was finally seeing me. Not the asset, Not the shadow, but the woman who had just dismantled 3 of the most powerful families in the state and sabotaged a federal investigation, all from his own laptop. He finally let out a long breath, not of anger, but of something else. Resignation. Defeat. "So," he said, his voice quiet. "What now, Ilera?" "Now," I said, walking over to the desk and picking up my own non-secure phone. "Now you make 2 calls. The first one is to your father. You will tell him that Operation Crown is over and that its primary asset, Shadow, is officially terminated, effective immediately. You will tell him that any attempt to detain me, follow me, or contact me will result in my full, unredacted story, including Operation Crown and your recruitment methods being sent to every political rival he has. I have it all ready to go, Leo." A dead man's switch. His jaw tightened. He knew I wasn't bluffing. "What's the second call?" he asked, his voice rough. "The second call," I said, "is to your father's lawyers, the ones who work with the courts. You are going to have that family court order on my bank account lifted. My money was frozen because I was unwell. I'm feeling much better now. I want it released within the hour." He looked at me, a long, searching gaze. I saw a flash of the man from the coffee shop, a flash of regret, of admiration. It made me sick. "I'll do it," he said. He picked up his phone. It took 30 minutes. 30 minutes of him speaking in low, urgent tones in the other room. When he came back, he looked smaller. "It's done," he said. "The order will be lifted. Your accounts are free." "Thank you," I said. I pulled up my laptop. I bought a one-way ticket to San Jose, Costa Rica. First class, leaving in 3 hours. I stood up and walked to the door, still in his gray sweatshirt and sweatpants. "Ilera, wait," he said, his voice pleading. "Where will you go?" I paused, my hand on the doorknob. "I'm going to go see about some plants," I said. "Ilera, for what it's worth." He started. "I really did in the coffee shop. That part was real. I fell in love with you." I turned to look at him one last time. His face was open, vulnerable. Maybe he even believed what he was saying. It didn't matter. "I know," I said. "And that's the tragedy, Leo. The problem is, that woman you fell in love with, she doesn't exist anymore. You, and Isla, and my parents, you all killed her. Goodbye." I walked out the door. I didn't look back. I took a car to the airport, and as the plane lifted off the runway, I watched the city that held my family, my sister, and my handler, disappear beneath the clouds. The weeks that followed were a storm I watched from a distance. Julian Croft never saw a trial. He took a plea deal, so fast it gave the papers whiplash. Faced with the evidence from his unhappy oligarch associates and the financial crimes Leo's team had already compiled, he was a man with no cards left to play. He gave up everyone, including my father, to save himself from a life sentence. He's in a federal prison. His escape hatch fund was seized, and the name Croft is now synonymous with high-level criminal fraud. My parents, their lives were collateral damage. My father, implicated in Julian's creative accounting, lost his law license. They were social pariahs. Their friends, their business partners, they vanished overnight. They were forced to sell the house to pay the legal fees. My mother called me once, about a month after. I was at a small cafe by the beach, and an unknown number came through. Her voice was thin. "Ilera, thank God. Your father and I, we're in a terrible situation. We need a little help. To get back on our feet." She didn't apologize. She didn't say she was wrong. She just asked for money. I hung up the phone. I blocked the number. And Isla, my sister, her fate was, in a way, the most complete. The university, facing a public academic fraud scandal, rescinded her law degree. The state bar invalidated her. The Croft family, furious at the public humiliation she had brought them, the fraud, the arrest at the wedding, had the marriage annulled. She was left with nothing. No husband, no degree, no career, no money, no family. She was last seen, according to a gossip site, working as a hostess at a restaurant in another state, under a different name. The ultimate irony. The star had become a shadow. And me. I'm not in a sterile apartment. I'm not in a gray admin cubicle. I'm in Costa Rica. I'm writing this from the porch of a small, open-air research station that I helped fund. I'm surrounded by the jungle. The air is thick and warm and smells like jasmine and wet earth. My hands are covered in dirt. That simple admin job taught me how to save. And Leo, in a final, complicated act of what I can only assume was penance, had his father's lawyers redirect a portion of the seized Croft family assets. Not Julian's illegal money, but my father's. The money that should have been my inheritance. The money they tried to steal from me. It was enough. It was more than enough. I'm finally finishing the research I abandoned all those years ago. I'm cataloging new species. I'm building something that is truly, finally mine. I think back to that woman in the wine-soaked dress, standing on that gravel path, shivering and alone. I feel gratitude for her, for the pain. It was a fire, a terrible, all-consuming fire, but it burned away every part of me that wasn't real. It burned away the shadow, the sister, the asset, and the victim, until all that was left was Alara. And that is my story. Thank you so much for staying with me, for listening to this. I truly hope you are comfortable wherever you are. It's been a journey, hasn't it? To go from that reception to here. I would love to know what you think. What part of the takedown at the press conference was the most satisfying for you? Do you think Leo got what he deserved, or do you think he was a victim of his own game? Please, let me know all your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading them. And if you love the story, if you believe in justice and that the quiet one can have the loudest roar, please do me a favor. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and maybe share it with someone you know who needs to be reminded of their own strength. We have so many more stories to tell, and you won't want to miss a single one. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one.